Hello everyone, and welcome. Welcome to this session. We're so excited to discuss this topic today, one that I'm certain each of us has faced at some point, at least once in our career. I'm Angie Jackson, partner and talent acquisition manager here at CGI. My amazing team proudly supports 6 provinces across Atlantic and Western Canada, and I'm so very fortunate to be coming to you from beautiful Victoria, BC. CGI positioned me here about 8 years ago, and I'm blessed to be here today. You know, negotiating is really a part of my role, a big part of my role here at CGI, and I hope that much of this discussion will resonate with many of you today. I have the honor of introducing Jyoti, VP Consulting Services, an exemplary leader who I first met when she was a new director some time ago here at CGI. Jyoti, I first want to comment on your inspiring quote and share with you that I think every woman should speak these words to the face in the mirror every single day with conviction. Without further ado, welcome, Jyoti. Why are we here today?
Thank you so very much, Angie, for the introduction. Honestly, I love other people talking about me because then I get to hear all these wonderful compliments, but thank you. My name is Jyoti Visveswaran, and I'm a VP, as Angie said, in the public sector at CGI. And what does that mean, being a VP? It means that I work with different clients in the public sector. I manage the teams, the client relationship, the P&L, the day-to-day operations. It's busy, it's fun, it's exhilarating. There's never a dull moment. I worked in technology for over 27 years. I fell in love with technology in high school, never looked back. So this is the only thing I've done. But I worked in different horizontals, in different verticals, with different industries, in different countries, in different continents. So it's been a very, very rewarding career for me. So throughout this discussion, I will be talking about my professional life and my lessons learned. So I'll keep this introduction brief. But I will tell you that I'm super thrilled to be here today because, you know, I my background when I way back when I was young, I was phobically shy. I was so shy that when people would ask me questions, I'd run behind my mom's sari and hide and not answer it. And so, as because of that, what happened is I became a very, very good listener, and that's really paid so much dividends to me throughout my career. So, there's been many aha moments to get to where I am today. There's been many coaches, many mentors. They may not have all known that they were my coaches and mentors, but there's been many. I'm not an expert on this topic, but I would like to share my learnings today because what I've learned is that the more we all tell each other stories, the more we learn, the better we get. So you're already all enrolled into this session today. You're listening. What I'd like to ask is lean in, provide active participation, and this will be so much more a rewarding discussion this way. So as you have thoughts, as you have questions, as you have inputs, enter them in the chat, and my wonderful colleague here will read them out to me, and I'll try and answer them as we get them. At the end of this session, if there's only 3 things that I'd like you to get out of today, and I'll be talking about many things, but if I have to pick on the top 3, it will be prepared, build your network, and be bold. And the reason for all that is when you're thinking of mapping your career success, there are things we can do to make sure that we actually get to where we need to go based on our goals, our goals, our aspirations, what targets we set for ourselves, and how to get there. So today we'll definitely, as Angie is showing here, we'll be talking a little bit about how to build that confidence, how we advocate for ourselves, how we actually promote ourselves, and how we get down to the negotiation aspect of it. So please keep those 3 things in mind as we navigate through this deck. Thanks, Angie.
I have to say, Jyoti, I find it very hard to believe that you were ever shy. But then again, all right.
All right, some stats here. The reason I have these stats, and you can read the stats for yourself, I'm not actually going to spend a lot of time reading these stats to you. They are pretty surprising. We've been talking about D&I and women in leadership and so on and so forth for a long time. But to move that needle, it, we've been talking about it, but when you look at the actual numbers, you'll see that we haven't really moved the needle very far. And the reason I wanted to bring this up today was because, it's all within our responsibility to see what we can do. It's not just what the stats are, it's what are each of us doing individually about this? What can we do? What should we do? And how can we make these numbers look better? I remember many years ago reading about Serena Williams, who I think is the most fantastic superstar, sports star. And she talked about how early on in her life, after she'd won many Grand Slams, she, looked around and saw that there weren't that many Black women playing tennis, and they weren't. When you look at what women get paid versus men get paid in the sports field, it's different. And she was wondering, why isn't somebody doing something about it? And then she had that aha moment where she thought, wait a minute, I can do something about it. It should be me. I should start doing something about it. And now she uses her, successes to advocate for all this. So how do we close this gap? If you look at those last two numbers there, the 26% and the one quarter, that's the area that I'd like to concentrate on today. And I'm not going to spend, like I said, a lot of time dwelling on the numbers, but I do want to emphasize how important it is that we need to keep moving the needle forward.
Yeah, indeed, Jyoti. It is somehow alarming that we're not moving the needle forward as quickly as I think collectively we'd like to. Have you ever found yourself among some of these statistics at any point?
Many, many times, Angie. Throughout my career, I found myself in so many of this thing. The one thing I will say though is, I was doing I was in high school, I was studying statistics and economics and all those things. And as a side, uh, after curricular class, I attended a computer class. And that's when I fell in love with technology. And like I said, never looked back. The very first class I attended, I was like, this all resonates with me. So that part, I was always sure I wanted to be in the world of technology, and I've never been disappointed. But all those other things, in terms of, do I really advocate for myself? Could I have negotiated better? Should I have been promoted? What should I have done? All those things, I've found myself in that position many, many times.
So, how have you overcome some of those barriers as you evolved in your career? What's important to you? What has been?
Thanks, Angie. You know, these are, like I said, these are stories you have to tell. These are things that you really have to take time to figure out how to be best prepared. So when I talked about the top three things, I said preparedness. But what does that mean? If you could go to the next slide, Angie.
Hmm.
What I'd really like to talk about is, you need to take the time to understand your core skills. I was reading up on some of this, I don't know, some time ago, and somebody talked about, don't come to a potluck with only a fork. And I thought, wow, that is so relevant, because the truth is, when you're talking to your organization, a different organization, you have to talk about what you bring to the table. It's a joint symbiotic relationship with your organization. So you have to know what you're bringing to that table. And this has taken me time, because to do this, you need to be honest. You need to ask peers and your network and your colleagues, people you actually trust, for really good feedback. And then you need to take the time to look at all that and say, how am I going to match that to the so what, to the role I'm applying for? For example, if I said, Jyoti is a good communicator, but what does that really mean? What
Hmm.
I'm trying to say is that because I'm a good communicator, and because, like I said before, I'm an expert listener, so to speak, when I speak to the clients and they're telling me their story or their challenges, I'm not sitting there thinking, oh, I've got to respond with my own story. I'm actually listening to those challenges. So, what I can do with that is I can take that information and say, Miss Client, I heard about your challenges. Do you know your challenges can be overcome because we have these type of solutions in mind? So that so what has to resonate when you're being honest with yourself, bringing in the strength, the experience, the accomplishments, all of which I'm sure we have. We have those certifications, we have those soft skills, we have those very qualified, education behind us, and so on and so forth. But we have to remember why this is important for the organization we are talking to. Everything we've done in the past is important, but how are we going to leverage that to what we are looking for? And I think that's the core piece of that negotiation skill that people tend to lose out on, even in interviews. They just tell you what they did in the past, but they don't always talk about, so what does that mean for the role you're applying for? And as a talent acquisition person, Angie, I'm sure you hear a lot of that as well, right?
Indeed, indeed. Yes, the what is important, but it's the how and the why too that factor in, definitely. So what I'm actually hearing you say is that among all of this, self-awareness is a huge factor in this quest overall. How do you go about this discovery of self yourself?
Well, it takes time. I wish I'd taken, I had taken the time to listen to other people, to build my network, to connect with people and get all that information. But it
Mhm.
takes time to know what's important for you. So there comes a time in your life, and at different phases in life, you have to go through different things. If you go to the next slide, Angie, it's what is important. And I think you said it well, right? It's the what, the how, the who, all those things. You can see this person trying to choose between two very similar things, but when you look deep down, it's not that similar. And if you could go to the next slide, which is where I'd like to spend a little bit of time on,
Mhm.
because this is, I think, what is really important. So in the beginning, sorry, were you going to say something, Angie?
I'm in complete agreement with you. I said, indeed.
I said I would give you a little more context about my own career. So I joined CGI in 2006, and I worked with CGI for 15 years. And I left CGI in 2021, and I joined Accenture as a managing director. And then last year in 2023, October, I came back to CGI. Now, before I joined CGI, I was at Rogers, I was working as a manager. And then I decided to join CGI in as a senior consultant in 2006. That decision for me was a very simple one. It was big. I loved my life at Rogers. I loved what I was doing, my colleagues, everything was fantastic. But Rogers had moved their office from downtown to Brampton. My kids were young. Working from home was not a possibility. Working from home during work hours was not a possibility. And going to Brampton every day, coming back, picking up my kids, taking them for extracurricular activities, it wasn't working for me. So at that point in time, my biggest, most important element that I was looking for is somewhere where I could work close by. And commerce, the office at CVD for CGI was 20 minutes away from me. I could come back home and still manage all my day-to-day activities that I needed with my kids after work. So that was what was most important for me. However, when I joined CGI, I had no network. I knew nobody. I joined online. I had not, I knew very little about CGI. I researched it before I interviewed for it, but I knew very little about CGI or what the culture meant or anything. When I look back, I realized how lucky I was that I got into an environment that I truly enjoy and truly love. But at that point of time, what I should have done is I should have reflected more. I should have really taken the time to understand what it means to me and what are the important key elements for me. I will say that no matter where I worked in different countries, whether it was India or Dubai or Jamaica or Canada, one thing always stood out for me, and that was respect. I always looked at respect as my number one area in life. Respect means different things to different people, but if you recall, I said I was very shy. And part of the issue for me being shy was that people would always talk over me. Because I was so quiet, I didn't exist for most people because even when they spoke to me, I wouldn't speak back. And so if you're going to be talked over as you are, working in the corporate world, to me, what respect meant was that I will be in a place where my voice is heard. And I'm okay with multiple voices and multiple ideas and choosing the best one, but I at least needed a place where my voice was going to be heard. So having that was invaluable to me. I am not going to neglect compensation and how important that is, but there is a reason why I've put compensation nearly at the very end, because compensation is important. We all work for, we work for money. The world revolves around economics, so don't get me wrong, but it's not everything. If you work in a place that you don't enjoy and every day you wake up not liking that work, that's going to show not only in the work, in your day to day life, in your personal life, it's going to reflect everywhere. So you might be getting paid really well, but if you don't like what you do and do what you like, it's going to go nowhere. So what I'm really trying to get to here, Angie, is that whether you look at culture, sorry, I do have a few more examples, and stop me if you have question or so, Angie. But I do want to say that culture is another area because I like a fun place. I like a place where people are interested, they want to do different things, that they want to work on different different opportunities where people actually want to do things outside of work, get involved in things. And so recently, after I left Accenture and before I joined CGI, I was talking to a different consulting company and it was going really well. And we were at the stage where I was negotiating the offer letter. And then I looked at the senior partner and I said, what is your culture like? And of course, he said, what do you mean by culture? I said, like, what's the after work environment? How does that work? And how do you set me up for success? And he just stopped for a minute and he said, well, we have programs and stuff, and we'll put objectives on setting you up for success. And for the most part, we work. There are people who like to have fun and everything, but we work. And I thought, yes, that's not going to work for me. That really isn't, because that was important to me because I'd already learned my lessons across multiple places where I needed a little more than that. And therefore, for anybody out there who's looking for a job or who's looking to negotiate or who's looking for a next opportunity, think about every single aspect that's important to you. And when I started this, I said there's three areas you need to look at. You need to be prepared, you need to look at network, and you need to be bold. So I want to talk about network because to me, network is a very, very overused word, but a very, very underused verb. And what I mean again by that is that social media is rampant, people connect on LinkedIn all the time, but networking starts young when you are in school, in university, you make friends, you keep in touch with all those people. That's what networking is about. If you connect with me on LinkedIn and I don't know you at all, the chances of me actually connecting with you and referring you and doing things for you is very limited. Whereas if I've always kept in touch with my friends, with the people I work with, then it's so much greater. So networking is something that you do all the time. It's something that you do not just externally, but within your organization. I started at CGI not knowing a single soul. And now I cannot tell you the number of people I've reconnected with since I got back. And it's been overwhelming and wonderful and awesome. But it's because you take the time to build that network, you take the time to talk to people, join activities outside of work, join activities that that you're passionate about, where you meet other people. You never know who you meet, and it's not always related to a job, right? You learn so much talking to other people. So I'd like to emphasize the verb networking and how important it is to do that.
Yeah, we can really see where those critical values come in to you, and often you learn about what's really important to you through the experiences, and as you say, the experiences of what isn't important somehow makes some of those other values come out. I do see some of the CGI's core values among these considerations, and after hearing what you're mentioning here, they really do align with what's important to many people in so many ways. I just want to go take a quick step back to some of the things you mentioned earlier. There's a really interesting question here from our listeners. They say, I've heard that there's power in being introverted and being quiet, in quotes. But on the other hand, the loudest voices always seem to be the ones heard, as you mentioned yourself a few moments ago. How would you recommend balancing those two?
And that's an excellent question. To whoever asked that question, I can't tell you how many times I've actually thought of that. So, the power in being quiet and introverted is that you listen, you pay attention, you're so much more connected to those people around you. You see that somebody is cold or somebody is hungry, you take it because you know you're connected. You're not talking all the time. You notice those things, and there's so much more empathy by doing some of those things, right? But in a corporate world, there has to come a moment where you use all that knowledge, and you're in an environment, like I said, where your voice should be heard. So being quiet is wonderful because you learn a lot. You actually are able to imbibe everything that goes on around you, but you have to translate that back to the so what. So, what are you going to do about that? You've got to take that and say, you know what I'm going to do about that? I'm going to take that and I'm going to be in a role where I can leverage it and actually listen and make those changes that I need to make. So, and that comes from the confidence that you have to build within yourself to and be in an environment where your voice is going to be heard. So all of those factors are important, but the first step is to use that knowledge that you have based on the fact that you're introverted and you're quiet and all the things you're learning and that EQ that you have behind that, and translate that into the so what and use it in the corporate world.
Yeah, very true. All of it. A funny story about my own daughter. She's now well into her 30s, but as a very young child, she didn't speak right away, and of course, grandparents were worried, and everyone was worried about why isn't she speaking? Why isn't she speaking? And so finally, at about 2 years old or just shy of 2 years old, she began to speak, but she was already speaking full sentences. There was no baby babble with her. And she was just that kind of a person who had to sit back, reflect, witness her surroundings. And then when she was ready and had enough confidence to speak, there she went. And she hasn't stopped speaking since.
And Angie, that's what I can say about myself too. People tell me I don't stop speaking and that I'm not quiet and I'm, not soft spoken. So yes, I understand that.
Indeed. So as you're speaking about all of these core elements that are important, self-reflection can really be daunting. I think that to really have to know yourself to understand where these values come into play. Have you ever found yourself struggling with doubt?
All the time, all the time. And it's taken me even to be where I am right now. It's taken me a long time. Like I said, I truly was very, very shy. I come from a family of, I have three siblings, but more importantly, I come from a very large family with lots of cousins, and I was the youngest of all of them. So I grew up thinking I don't know anything, and it took me a long time to realize that it's because they were all older than me. Aha, of course, duh, they knew more, but it took me time. So, like, I think you need mentors and coaches and people in your life who first of all look at you and say, don't be so hard on yourself. People tend to spend more time reflecting on the negative than on the positive, and you've got to take time to reflect on the positives. So every time I and there are many days when I look at something and I look at the come to the end of the day and I go, what did I get done today? I didn't get these 63 things done. but I did get the other 21 things done. And you have to prioritize those things and you have to celebrate those wins. Recently, I had a fantastic presentation with a client. My daughter had just got some really good news. We decided to go to a restaurant across the street from CGI, and we went in to celebrate that little occasion. It wasn't monumental or anything, but little occasion, and we both came out of that feeling so good. You've got to celebrate that. You've got to prioritize the things that's important to you when you're feeling in doubt, when you're feeling not so good. Take the time. For me, what I need to do at that time is go for a walk, no matter what the weather is. For
That's
one of my daughters, it's singing. For my other daughter, it's doing ballet. It's whatever that takes your mind off things and lets you refocus on the things that you have to get done. Because when I said be prepared, you've already taken the time to create those things that you're good at, understand your superpowers. Once you do that, every time you're talking to somebody and you go to that so what, it's just reshaping the so what information. So take the time to document the things that you're good at. And when you're feeling, when you're being hard on yourself, go back and take a look at that and feel
mhm.
good about the things you have done, because it shows really when you go in, when you walk into a room with confidence, it shows, and the person on the other side responds to it as well. So it makes all the difference in the world.
Excellent advice, Jyoti. The questions in the chat are coming in hot and heavy. So I'm going to take a few steps back to some of
Please.
the things that you mentioned earlier. Um, Someone is asking, how do you push back on a changing and toxic culture while being scared of potentially being laid off or perhaps losing your job? Do you just give up and leave it if the culture is hindering your growth, especially in a job market such as this? Really
Thank you
strong.
again. Yeah, it's a good question, especially in the when you look at 2021 where the job market was, and when you look at now where the job market is, it's wildly different. So if you go back to my previous slide on all the different boxes, Angie, for a minute, it depends where you are in your current growth path and what you're looking for. I will say that at no point of time does it pay dividends to be in a toxic culture, because it is going to show in your day-to-day life and it's going to affect you in so many different ways, including mentally. So pushing back goes back to, have you built some sort of network? Are you in a position to be able to talk to somebody? Are you in a place where you can reach out to some of your peers and colleagues and speak as a team and as a group? Is it something that, are you in a position where you can find something else whilst you're doing all this and navigating your way through this? If you're absolutely not in a position to be laid off, which if you think that's going to be the ultimate end, if you do bring this up, then are you in a position to look for something else while you're having this discussion? This is all personal and unique to each individual person, but I am going to be honest and I'll let you know that this did happen to me. I was in a place where the talk culture was toxic, the environment was, it was many years ago, it was in a different continent altogether. I woke up every day completely dreading having to wake up and go into work. And what I did was I started talking to the other people within my groups, and I realized a lot of people felt the same way, but nobody had the courage to have that discussion. And I was still very young, I was in my 20s. And I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start looking for something else while I'm going to push back. And I started talking to, my manager. My manager said, speak to this person and then speak to that person. And I started having those conversations, and I realized that there were things we could do, that people were willing to listen. Not everything changes overnight, it takes time, but people were willing to listen. So it really depends on your situation, where you're at. But I will say that being in a toxic culture isn't helpful for mental health. So do try and build that network so you can talk to more people and see what other people are experiencing, and build your network outside of this so looking for a new opportunity becomes easier.
Indeed. I think very lucky are those individuals who can honestly say they've never been in a toxic environment. I think we've all faced that kind of environment at some point in our career. And I think you're absolutely right that, the respect factor, the trust factor, being able to trust someone that you can speak with, whether it's your leader or someone else in the organization who could maybe support you in that quest to reduce the toxicity or make changes to that kind of a culture. I think what it comes down to is a lot in a lot of cases is the courage
Yeah.
to see it, the courage to identify it, and the courage to speak out. And to say simply that's unacceptable for you. And as you say, sometimes you do have to take the risk of walking away for your own mental health. So that also takes a considerable amount of courage. I want to stay on this slide here because there are other questions that have come through that are really valuable, I think. And someone's asking, can you share a positive experience you have had when someone reaches out to you to network?
Well, it both ways, right? I many. So I usually respond to network requests if anybody sends it to me with a message. If I barely know the person and they just try and connect with me, then I don't know you. But if you send me a message and you say, "Hey, I'm so and so, this is my thing," then yes, I will. I'm somebody who always thinks that finding someone a place to work is invaluable. And I say that because every time somebody is placed somewhere, you feed four people. That's the general rule of thumb. So it's so important to be able to do that. And I come from generations of, my background where it was a core value within my family, and I still believe that. So I will say that when people reach out to me, I try very hard to help them. And it's not always just about finding somebody a job. It's about connecting the right person to another individual, or sometimes it's about connecting that person to activity or an outside social group where they will meet other like-minded people. So it's not always about finding the job. It's about connecting with the person to achieve whatever that goal might be. Personally, for me, I will say that I have actually reached out to people when I was in a jam once or twice, more than once or twice, many times, but I still need to learn this for myself. I'm not always good at asking for help, but when I do, I've always been so impressed with people coming back out and saying, "Hey, how can I help you? What can I do?" But be honest. If you're sending a note to somebody you don't know, say hello, I'm so and so, and be honest. That way, at least there's the authenticity that you get right from the get-go, and it makes the conversation so much better.
Indeed. What I've found myself, especially through, relationship building on LinkedIn, for example, is trying to connect with someone without actually having a need for their help. Connecting with them just for the purpose of getting to know them or getting to know something about their organization. Find it a lot easier to ask for help than once that rapport is established. So you don't necessarily need to feel like it's important just to reach out to someone because you think that they might be able to help you today. You may be able to help them at some point in the future or vice versa. But having that relationship already established, I think, is really important. And another element I think that I'd love for you to comment on, Jyoti, is what do you think about reaching out to people who are a few levels above you, even to have the courage to do that? Do you think that that's important for folks to consider?
It depends again on the context, Angie. So if you're somebody who's working at CGI and you're trying to reach to somebody three levels above, that makes perfect sense because you have something in common and you're doing something. Let's say you just graduated in, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, aerospace engineering, and you're reaching out to somebody in the world of Bombardier and you're reaching up different levels, it still makes sense. But without that context, without that, hello, I'm reaching out to you, blah, 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 it makes it harder for someone at any level to say, why am I reaching out to this person, right? So, or why
Mhm.
is this person reaching out to me? So I don't discourage anybody reaching out to anyone, because at the end of the day, what's the worst that can happen? They don't
Mhm.
connect. If you haven't
Mhm.
tried, you're not going to get it anyway. But don't burn your bridges, right? If you are reaching out to someone, put that little note, because that makes all the difference.
Indeed, indeed. Well, so we've reflected on our values. We've built our confidence in our own worth, in our own value. Earlier, you mentioned that compensation is only part of the story, but nonetheless, an important part. Let's face it. We all,
Yeah.
or for the most part, work to earn a living. Let's look at compensation. Have you ever accepted a role purely based on compensation?
Yes. Yes, I have.
How did that work for you?
Not very well. Not very
Okay.
well. Um, so again, I want to go through my life journey, because there are different times when compensation becomes important and different times when compensation doesn't. When you're young and you're starting out, let's say you have student debt and you need a place to live, compensation becomes very important, because there's so many things you're still trying to do. When you're at my stage, where your kids are grown up, they have their own lives, they have their own jobs, I don't have that same level of bringing bread to the table to feed everybody on a daily basis. The compensation, what I'm looking for now, is different from just the pure compensation. So, have I ever gone straight for the compensation? I have. And this was an example, again, many years ago in a different continent, where I, um, I decided to work as a consultant to a bank, and work purely on a consulting basis. The problem was that consultants got treated very differently from the employees. So much so that, and I'm not making this up for those people on the call, I don't tend to exaggerate like that, but so much so that when there was an event, what this organization would do is they would have an event for the employees in this big room with glass doors, and the consultants would be standing outside watching, and you're not allowed in.
Oy.
And yes, yes. So, uh, yes, the money was good, but the way it made me feel, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. So I did not stay there long, but I will never forget that experience of feeling like that outsider, and all because I was a consultant. So yes, I've taken jobs just for the money, but it's hard to live that life if you don't get those other elements that's important to you, whatever they may be.
Definitely. Yeah, I came back to this slide because I think you keep reflecting on, those core values, those things that are really important to you. And as much as compensation is important, I think you were very clear. So many other things have to take priority over that at certain points. Interestingly, just as a comment, here in BC and I think a few other provinces in Canada, recent equity legislation has unveiled some of the mystery around salary, whereby businesses who post jobs are now obligated to publish salary ranges. Until now, of course, we found ourselves a bit in the dark when planning for salary discussions. I think that's really helpful, and I'm glad to see that some of those stopgaps are being put in place to help not just women, but even new grads entering the market, which is really great.
That's wonderful. We really need that, and there are companies out there that now say that it's there's parity in compensation regardless of gender, right? So that's great to hear.
Indeed. Yeah. So I think, at this point, really what you're saying is negotiate for yourself,
Yeah.
negotiate your own path, not just, again, on a singular level, but overall. How do you approach these kinds of discussions yourself to negotiate with confidence?
And like I said, it's taken time. So if you want to go to the next slide, I do have some very clear do's and don'ts. And none of this, oh, sorry, before I get there, I forgot about this slide. Sorry. I forgot about the slide, though. It's so important. And
Mhm.
I think it's very important because As a rule, women tend to, sometimes they don't even ask about, they don't even negotiate. And when they do, they don't always ask for as much as the men do. But that's, probably you're thinking, yeah, yeah, we know that. But what's really important is when women negotiate for other people, they end up negotiating 20% better than men. So I think what I'm hearing, the moral of the story for me is, when you're negotiating, pretend you're negotiating for someone else. Pretend you're negotiating for your partner, your sister, your brother, it doesn't matter, somebody else, and you're going to do better.
Yeah.
Having said all that, though, Angie, there are certain do's and don'ts that we must follow when we are at the table. Remember, when someone's talking to you on the other side, that they are already interested in you. They're not going to waste their time and effort to talk to you if they're not interested. So that part is covered. But you need to be factual. You need to be, and I have many stories. If I had time, I would tell you about the times that things that have failed when you're not factual, bridges that you burn when you're not factual. So be factual, be specific. And when, and interviews do that, they ask behavioral questions to go back and ascertain those facts that you talked about. And if it's not real facts, it's very, very transparent and easy to find. So do your research about the company, understand your walkaway point. So let's say you're negotiating for, and I'm again making this up, let's say you want to go back to your home country every year for 2 months a year because you have aging parents. And the company is not going to be okay with that. Well, if that is a rule breaker, if that's a deal breaker for you, then be clear about that. Be honest about that. Don't waste people's time, but have that walkaway point and know what's important to you. And I talked about bringing not just the fork to the table, but your entire meal to the table and the so what's, which is also your unique selling proposition. Because anytime you're at this table, you want to say, why would they pick me against somebody else? So you've got to have that. These are the clear reason, but you got to set up that expectation versus reality. Somebody asked a very valid question on the labor market. So know what the labor market is right now. Know based on your peers, your network, your contacts, and all the websites out there that give you this information. Know what the reality is right now and set your expectations based on that, because otherwise, again, you're not going to get what you're looking for. Um,
Absolutely.
I just
Uh,
wanted to add one more thing about this. I want to say, when you're being factual, be humble as well, right? Be humble about everything you've done. Otherwise, and the authenticity and the humbleness need to shine through as well, as against being aggressive. Sorry, Angie, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. I think all of those are really important points. And I think as well, very important, not just when you're negotiating for a new position, but also when you're negotiating for compensation adjustment or even a promotionary type of scenario for yourself when you're in an organization already. These are all the same kind of points that you should be opening yourself up to as you're being prepared, as you're preparing yourself to enter into a compensation discussion within a company. And I really love your don'ts.
Yeah.
As a technical recruiter myself, I encounter people every single day, several people every single day, talking to me about what they think they deserve. Or, well, I've been in the industry for so many years, and I feel that I'm worthy of this salary. Well, it's not the number of years necessarily that enables you to
Yeah.
ask for salary, but it's really talking about those factual, specific successes that you've had in your career. So all of those things for me resonate perfectly as I'm looking at it from a recruiter's perspective.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And be grateful no matter who you're talking to. At the end of the day, send that note to say thank you for your time, whether it's good or bad, because
Indeed.
burning bridges doesn't help anybody. So please be grateful to, whatever level within the organization, outside the organization.
Indeed. I think we're about to wrap up here. I think there's a clear message here that you would love to speak to our audience too. And this really sums it up very well, I find.
I do. So I talked about three things, right? I talked about really being prepared. So reflect on what you want, who you are, what's your unique selling proposition. Please think about your networks, expand it. Do do make sure you understand that networking is not about all the people you connect with on LinkedIn, but all the other people you encounter on a day to day basis, the other extracurricular things that you do. Recently, a colleague of mine, I like curling, and a colleague of mine, and he was very far away, went curling somewhere else. And he called me up and he said, Jyoti, guess who's curling with me? This gentleman is on the board of your client's company. And it was such a simple introduction, and we went and had lunch together with the board member. It was wonderful, but it was a connection I'd never expected. So these small things make such a huge difference, and you don't know what it is. I talk about knowing your value, but it's knowing your value and marrying it back to the opportunity you're looking for. You have to be able to be specific about why your value is going to be worth its weight in gold for that opportunity. And then ask for what you want, because now you're prepared. You know everything that you're going to bring to the table. So ask for what you want, whatever that may be. Like I said, different people need different things at different stages of life. So have that list of things that you're looking for, and not always about the money. Money is important, but it's not always about the compensation. But do ask for what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. All perfectly relevant. Well, I think we're very close to the end of our session here. I do want to try to find a few minutes for us to answer some very interesting questions. But I think this next slide that we've prepared here, you've prepared, really sums it up. I love the analogy on this one. I really think that if you see yourself larger than life, you can deliver larger than life. So
Exactly. You've got to be bold. You got to be brave. You've got to be confident. You know you've got this if you're prepared, and you know your worth. You really do. So don't be hard on yourself, right? Just
indeed.
go get what you're looking for, because I truly believe we've got this. And like I said, it takes time, it takes self-reflection. You have to have those aha moments, build those coaches, build those mentors, talk to people, connect with people, uh, and you got this.
Awesome. Well, the final statement, ask for what you want, be prepared to get it. I love it.
Who doesn't like Maya Angelou?
So, Jyoti, I'm going to go back and take a look at some of the questions that have come up here. And
Sure.
we have the luxury, as we are the last speakers of the day today, to actually go right down to the half hour. So I'm hoping that you're okay with
Of
me going
course.
forward and asking some of these very pertinent questions. The IT field evolving fairly quickly, of course. As someone looking to build on my skills, how do I decide which up and coming specialization to focus on? And then going on to say data science, research, UX design, etc. How do you pick, or is it better to be a generalist?
I'm going to start by saying, you've got to know what you like to do, right? Do you want to be in the world of AI? Do you want to be in the world of data? Do you want to be in the world of front end design? What is it that you truly like to do? And I keep going back to this because I truly believe you've got to like what you do and do what you like. If all of them interest you, then pick the one that most interests you. Because right now, AI is very glamorous, as is data science. But there's an ebb and a flow to everything. But at the end of the day, the core technology in terms of being in the world of technology hasn't changed. And whichever opportunity you get into, if you're in with an organization that lets you grow and lets you train and lets you study, and in a challenging world where you can move on to different opportunities, the chances are you'll get to experience a lot of different things. It's not just one or the other, but you'll be able to work on all sorts of different things. So pick the one that you like the best. If you asked me 5 years ago, I'd have said data science. If you ask me right now, I'd have said absolutely. If you're doing anything with AI, that's going to, uh, get big. If you ask me 2 years from now, I'll say, oh, let's look at quantum, because I think quantum computing is going to be big, and so on and so forth, right? So things evolve and change. If you're lucky enough to like all of it, pick what you like the best, but there's always scope for all the things you've mentioned, whether it's data science, AI, or UX.
And be looking ahead, right? And take the steps based on what direction the market appears to be taking, if that's an
Yep.
area of interest for you. I think we have time for one last question. Despite having 20 years of experience in the IT sector, I only recently joined the Canadian workforce. Moving to Canada meant starting my networking from scratch. And perhaps due to English being my second language, I've never felt confident introducing myself. What would you recommend to someone who has similar difficulties?
Excellent question. Whoever asked that question, I'm going to start off by telling you a little story about myself again. I came to Canada I always struggle with this because I'm not very good with, date of birth, when, what. But I want to say about 25 years ago, I'd been working in technology already. I came here. I spoke to headhunters. They said, well, you're going to get less than everybody else because you don't have a Canadian experience. And I said, well, I'm looking to be an Oracle developer. Whether I worked in India or in Jamaica or Dubai or here, an Oracle developer is an Oracle developer. And he looked at me for 3 seconds and he said, that's a great answer. If you can say that, no problem. Just say the same thing to anybody who brings up that point. So, he should have informed me of that. It shouldn't have been me thinking about that, which is fine. But my point is, it depends on what role you're looking for. If English is your second language, and I don't know uh, if you need to go be like I don't know if you're looking for a sales job or an account management job, or if you're looking for an operations job. In each of those cases, those communication skills are different. But I do think the more you connect with in outside activities, with outside things that you do, the better you can be prepared from a conversational skills perspective. And the more you talk about the so what's, the better you'd be in a position to say, "Yeah, I have all this industry experience. My communication skills might not be great, but I can still use that for these so what's." And I think that's what's important. I will end this by saying I had a friend who'd come from Serbia, I believe, and she didn't speak a word of English. So for the first 6 months, she decided to work at a restaurant just so that she could learn the language, right? So it depends on which where you are with your communication skills. But I don't think that's an absolute hindrance from moving on or getting the job that you're looking for. It's how you present yourself, the confidence with which you present yourself, and being very clear on what you bring to the table. I think that's really what it boils down to.
Valuable, valuable advice, Jyoti. Thank you. I want to thank you for your thought provoking insight today and for taking the time from. I know what is your busy schedule. I know what the VP's schedule looks like here at CGI. You've been such an important part of the CGI Women in Tech series. I have learned so much from you today, as I have in the past. This is our final session today, as I just mentioned earlier. We hope you'll join us tomorrow. There are 4 more enlightening sessions with very inspiring CGI leaders as Jyoti. There's a QR code coming up. So please feel free to jump on that. And the 4 sessions you'll see for tomorrow that they're available to you. I'm going to be attending a few myself as my own schedule permits, but I'm also looking forward to them. They're great sessions and highly enlightening. So Jyoti, once again, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Angie. I'll just end by saying thank you to Angie and for the huge, wonderful team that helped put all this together. I said this before and I'll say it again. It takes a village to put something like this together. So thank you to that wonderful team out there behind the scenes who've made all this happen. And for all of you who've taken the time out there today to listen to this, please provide feedback so we can do more, be better. And I truly, truly believe that with the right amount of confidence and the networking and the being prepared, we can do so much more together as a group. So thank you all for this. Really looking forward to next steps.
See you
Bye, everyone.
soon.